What's up, guys? Your boys, 20K13. I'm here to give you guys your wrestling news wrap up for May 14, 2015. The latest on Sami Zayn's status for NXT TakeOver, update on the current TNA creative team and Billy Corgan role. While we were still awaiting a final decision from WWE Doctor as to whether Sami Zayn can compete in his scheduled title match with Kevin Owens at NXT TakeOver. It seems the company is going ahead as if he will be a part of next Wednesday's match, while the in-ring face-off between the two that airs this week was taped well in advance, and that's the unavoidable danger of competing between TV taping. They did run a backstage segment with Sami Zayn from his match from John Cena, where he was injured. It appeared to be recorded right after the U.S. title fight, and Sami did say he thought his shoulder popped out 30 seconds into the match. As we know that the injury happened before the match, but WWE is putting the blame on a move from Cena, which looked much better. The feeling right now is that Sami will compete. It's possible plans can change. If they knew for certain he was out of action, an announcement would have been made in some way either on Raw or NXT so they could promote any changes made for TakeOver. By not saying anything, it gives them another couple of days for Sami to rest and Doctor to reevaluate his condition. There is likely a backup option in place, but right now the hope is that he'll be ready to go in time. The Wrestling Observer newsletter is reporting that Dave Lagana is now heading up the creative team in TNA, working with Matt Conway, Christy Hemme, and Billy Corgan. At the latest edition, there was a lot of talk and speculation when TNA made their announcement, with worry that Corgan was taking over creative and him not being ready for the job. But that isn't the case, and he's just working as a part of the team. Creative will still report to Dixie Carter and John Goldberg. Backstage report. WWE interested in signing a fourth-generation wrestler. Who is it? The Wrestling Observer newsletter. According to sources, WWE is seriously considering signing Cedric Rougeau, the son of former WWE star Jackie Rougeau Jr., the fourth-generation wrestler, met with WWE officials before the May 4th Raw in Montreal for about 20 minutes. Rougeau is 6'7" and nearly 300 pounds and speaks English and French fluently. He is being backed by Pat Patterson, and WWE liked the idea of a Montreal-based star. He would likely be the first fourth-generation wrestler in WWE if he signed. It is important to note that while he has been wrestling for his father's promotion for 5 years, that promotion worked a different style where the match is practiced in the gym for a long time before it is done publicly. Backstage news on the Jim Ross GFW negotiation, a network deal, 12 to 14 episode plan, and more. The sources are the Wrestling Observer newsletter. The current plan, as previously reported, is for Global Force Wrestling to shoot 12 to 14 episodes. Jeff Jarrett has had talk of late with CMT, Fox Sports 2, WGN America, and Spike about a possible TV deal. While no deal has been made with Jim Ross at this time, the two sides are in talk. The discussion possibly comes down to money, and Jeff Jarrett is looking at getting more financial backing, but there may be a scheduling issue as well. Backstage news. Can TNA superstar work for the GFW promotion, and more? The sources are the Wrestling Observer newsletter. John Goldberg has told Talent and TNA that they are not allowed to work GFW TV taping. There was a sense that TNA didn't want their talent working GFW shows at all, but Gurburik told them that he's awaiting word from Dickie Carter about the house show. The impression among talent is that it is okay to work those shows. As such, only Tyrus has taken any dates with GFW out of TNA roster. Backstage GFW news. Update on the talent, contract, ROH, GFW, working relationship, and more news. The sources are the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Several other names announced for GFW are only booked for house shows or a limited amount of other shows. Among those are Moose, who as previously reported is still under contract to ROH, and Davey Boy Smith, D.A. Smith, and Lance Archer, Lance Hoy, who have commitment to a full schedule for Pro Wrestling Noah. Regarding Moose, it surprised many people in ROH that he is doing GFW show because of his contract. Moose's contract expires next month and he is being stopped by both promotions for a deal. ROH talent not under deals that are particularly exclusive to the promotion can work GFW shows as long as it is just house shows. NXT stable drop. Latest update on Bob Backlund incident at Verve Gaines funeral. Former announcer did not report. The sources the Wrestling Observer newsletter. There have been some rumors going around that the Shoot Nation NXT stable had been dropped, but it has since been confirmed going forward. Sawyer, Fulton, and Angelo Dawkins will continue to team together, but under a different name. There is no report yet as what NXT will do with Chad Gable going forward. According to former AWA announcer Mark Clark, who was in attendance at the late Vern Gay funeral, the reported incident involving Bob Backlund cutting a promo didn't happen as reported. Cox denied the report in a post on Facebook, saying Backlund made some comments saying he was representing WWE and told Greg Gunn not to talk back to him, and sat down. Greg asked who let Backlund in when someone told him who made the remark. There have been conflicting reports as to how Backlund spoke, with some saying he was speaking and was proper, and others said he screamed during Greg's speech like he was cutting a promo. Update on Global Force Wrestling roster. Jeff Jarrett speaking to several networks. Is Young Ross headed to GFW? The sources are the Wrestling Observer newsletter. We previously reported many of the names on the Global Force Wrestling roster will only be working non-televised live events, so there are no conflicts with their existing deal with respective companies. TNA and Ring of Honor won't allow contracted talent to work for GFW, although ROH gave permission for the live event only. Despite not having permission from TNA, Tyrus had to accept a deal with GFW, although terms have not been revealed, and the company can't really prevent him from accepting non-televised deal. Another surprise signing was ROH star Moose, but a deal was worked out and it's believed anyone can work the live event or show as long as it's not televised. In regard to Jeff Jarrett working out a television deal and signing more talent, he is reported to be in early talk with Spike, CMT, Fox Sports, and WGN about possible deals. He doesn't have a deal in place with former WWE announcer Young Ross, but they are in negotiation as well. The hope is that GFW will have Ross work with Channel Sonnen in the booth, and scheduling and pay rate is what the agreement will come down to. Sami Zayn still competing at TakeOver. News on former Diva working with NXT talent. As noted, former WWE diva Eve Torres had been at the WWE Performance Center working with talent. Below is a photo of her husband, Renda Gracie, with a group of NXT talent. Torres had been working with the NXT diva. Despite suffering a shoulder injury, Sami Zayn continued to hype his TakeOver Unstoppable match, so it appeared as if he will be competing next week. New Undertaker book update. It was previously noted that wrestling author Kevin Sullivan is working on an official WWE book about The Undertaker. PWInsider.com is reporting the book will be an in-character look at The Undertaker and his storylines and matches, not Mark Calloway, who plays the Undertaker character. Backstage news on Sonata Future. GFW and WWE both interested, and more. The sources are the Wrestling Observer newsletter. As previously reported, Sonata was released by TNA last month before his contract was up. His release was largely the result of being caught in the crossfire between TNA and Wrestle One when their relationship fell apart. Sonata is not going to return to Japan and will instead be working with Global Force Wrestling. There is said to be some interest in a possible WWE tryout. Batista to be a villain yet again in the new film Warrior Gate. Former WWE superstar Dave Batista continued to make headlines in Hollywood after signing on to be the villain in a new film titled Warrior Gate that is scheduled to which began filming earlier this month in China. Filming is scheduled to wrap in Canada. According to Variety, the movie follows a teenager who is magically transported to China and learns to convert his video game skills into those of a Kung Fu warrior. No release date for the film is known at this time. Who is WWE advertising as the new Intercontinental Champion at upcoming live event? When WWE send out advertisement to the arena that they plan on holding events at, they give a list of matches that will take place at those events. WWE had updated those advertisements for upcoming shows due to Daniel Bryan's injury and relinquishing the Intercontinental title. WWE is now advertising Sheamus as the Intercontinental Champion. Take this for what it's worth for now, as WWE has not announced plans for the IC title. WWE teaming up with DK Publishing to release an Attitude Era book. WWE issued the following press release to us. WWE and DK will unleash a little attitude. Indianapolis, Indiana, May 13, 2015. DK Publishing will release the WWE Attitude Era, a book that takes readers straight into one of sports entertainment's most colorful and controversial period. In this cure for the common book, we break down the outrageous moment, the pulse-pounding action, and the over-the-top moment that made up the infamous Attitude Era. We live the late 90s with Stone Cold Steve Austin, D-Generation X, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Undertaker, Mankind, and the deep roster of WWE superstar and diva that define Attitude. New interviews from Stone Cold Steve Austin, Triple H, Trish Stratus, and many more. A retrospective on the beginning and end of the era, plus all the chaos in between. Stunning visual with full-color imagery on every page, including never-before-seen photos. Backstage update on TNA creative team, who is their head writer, other writers reveal. The sources are the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Dava Lagana is now the head of creative in TNA. The team is Lagana leading Matt Conway, Chrissy Hemme, and the newly signed Billy Corgan. While there were concerns that Corgan would take over creative before he was ready for the job, that isn't the case, and he's simply working as part of the team. Creative is still reporting to Dixie Carter and John Gabuvic. Big Daniel Bryan WWE Backstage Update, the backstage reaction, character change, and more. The sources are the Wrestling Observer newsletter. WWE was originally hoping that Daniel Bryan would be able to get back in the ring this month, with the plan being for him to defend his WWE Intercontinental Championship against King Bad News Barrett at the WWE Payback pay-per-view. As we learned on Monday, WWE Payback Go Home edition of Raw, Bryan received MRI results this past Friday that informed him that he would not be cleared to return anytime in the near future, and possibly forever. The situation with Bryan had caused a great deal of frustration behind the scenes in WWE. The company obviously wants what's best for Bryan, but at the same time would really like for him to be actively working and on television because they have a new Bryan DVD, book, and other items that need to be promoted. The concern for Bryan not being able to wrestle for such a particularly long amount of time, and the belief that he and his style make him very injury prone, have WWE contemplating putting him in a non-wrestling role. This will allow them to keep the character on TV and help keep his face out there to move the merchandise. Ever since Monday edition of Raw, when Bryan surrendered the Intercontinental Championship, the talk has been that Bryan is actively trying to find a way to get cleared to return. As of right now, there is no word whether or not Bryan is willing to get the surgery that he has long been reluctant to get, or if that is even an option at this point. Needless to say, there are a lot of people in WWE that feel bad for Bryan, considering the awful personal and professional hardship he's been forced to endure over the past year or so. Backstage news on Adam Cole's return to ROH and confirmation on when he was cleared to return. As previously reported, Adam Cole returned to action last night after ROH New Japan Pro Wrestling War of the World event taking on AJ Styles. We can now confirm that Cole was cleared to return on Tuesday afternoon, just a few hours before the event. Cole also competed at last night's second night of the event as part of the six-man tag team main event. Cole teamed with Mike Bennett and Matt Taven against AJ Styles and the Young Bucks. Backstage news on Owen Hart to the WWE Hall of Fame, plus the new Owen Hart DVD in the works. Source: the Wrestling Observer newsletter. As previously reported, WWE has been working on an Owen Hart Blu-ray DVD set. While Martha Hart spoke out strongly against it once she found out, she will be the one to get any royalty when it gets released. WWE has full legal rights to produce and release any such video set, as they own the footage. WWE also did not tell Martha ahead of time when they did a set on the Hart family which featured Owen. There has also been discussion about inducting Owen into the WWE Hall of Fame next year. It is very unlikely that Martha Hart would support an introduction. WWE could still do the induction without her blessing, but they may end up feeling as if it's not worth the controversy it will cause. Backstage update on the return of the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, including 2 women's matches. The sources are the Wrestling Observer newsletter. As previously reported, the Elimination Chamber WWE Network exclusive will feature both the vacant Intercontinental title and the Tag Team title defended in the titular structure. While the details on the tag team title match have not yet been completely worked out, on the current plan is to have both wrestler and a team in one pod and being released at the same time. The match would be fought at a tornado tag team match with everyone in the ring at the same time. There is some debate as to whether to go with 16 or a lesser number. Backstage news on WWE's original plan for Justin Bieber after 2014 WWE SummerSlam pay-per-view. As previously reported, former WWE booking team member Kevin Eck said the original idea for last year's SummerSlam was to have John Cena, Big Show, and Justin Bieber to face the Wyatt family. Eck went on to say that the match was discussed and the creative team was told that it was going to happen. The idea was abandoned when Bieber decided against appearing. Eck also said that he was against the idea of having Bieber appear alongside Cena because he felt the WWE audience would hate Bieber and this would cause him to turn on Cena even more during a time when they were trying to get fans to like him. The working idea was then to use the heat for Bieber to get Cena over by having him deliver an attitude adjustment to the single after the match. Backstage update on Goldust WWE future following shoulder surgery on Tuesday. The sources are the Wrestling Observer newsletter. As previously reported, Dustin Runnels, aka Goldust, underwent surgery yesterday. As of now, he is expected to be sidelined for around 6 months, and given his age, 46, and the fact that WWE is keen to push younger talent, there is considerable doubt whether he will make it back on TV, especially since the feud with Cody Rhodes isn't going to happen. Although he hasn't been directly told this is going to happen, there has been talk for months now of sending him down to WWE Performance Center NXT to train younger talent. He's very knowledgeable when it comes to in-ring work, promos, etc. WWE legend goes off on Roddy Piper over his comment on podcast. Earlier this week, Roddy Piper was on the Adam Carolla show to plug his anti-bullying charity work. He covered all sorts of topics. By the way, wrestling related and otherwise. Early on, they were talking about his skill at playing the bagpipe, including Piper claiming that he wants to get in 5th place in some sort of competition to determine the best bagpipe in the world. Then at the 1 hour 36-minute 30-second mark of the podcast, Carolla made a joke about the Honky Tonk Man finishing ahead of Piper in the competition. Piper used this as an opportunity to air a grievance, and I quote, "Of all the wrestlers, he's an asshole," Piper said. Honky Tonk, he can't sing, he can't play the guitar, and he's jealous. And on top of that, allegedly he tried to buy my name, Roddy Piper. Wayne Ferris did. Allegedly, I saw it, and I don't know that it's the same Wayne Ferris, but I would find it difficult to believe there's another Wayne Ferris that dresses like Elvis Presley to wrestle. Really. That led to a tangent about Elvis Presley being a wrestling fan in Memphis who dated female wrestler Penny Banner, which is true. And a wild story what sounded like he was saying Sputnik Marone once trashed Elvis' house. That I moved on from the topic and didn't go back to it. This is not the first time in recent memory that Piper is gotten attention and or heat for a story he told in an interview. Last summer, when the trailer for his timeline history of the WWE 1984 shoot interview was released, it got a lot of attention for what happened to him, vaguely accusing Pat Patterson of sexual harassing him when he was about 21 years old. Piper later attempted to clarify his comment on his podcast. Average WWE Raw and SmackDown viewership information for March 2015. According to the Wrestling Observer, WWE Raw averaged a 3.02 rating with 4.23 million viewers for the month of March 2015. This is down 2.6% in rating and 2.1% in viewers from March 2014. With the Raw after WrestleMania in March instead of April like last year, the number is a bit misleading, with the number suggested you will have an average of a 2.86 rating with 3.94 million viewers in March, or a 7.7% drop in rating and an 8.8% drop in viewers from March 2014. 3.10 rating average and 4.32 million viewers. Raw averaged a 3.29 rating and a 4.57 million viewers in March 2013. SmackDown in March 2015 averaged a 1.89 rating and with 2.59 million viewers, down from March 2014 average of 2.3 rating with 2.88 million viewers. SmackDown averaged a 2.00 rating with 2.78 million viewers in March 2013. SmackDown has the advantage of being on Thursday night this year. Update: Destination America preempting Impact Wrestling on May 22nd. What will air in its place? According to the most recent edition of Wrestling Observer Radio, while TNA did in fact tape an episode of Impact to air on May 22nd, Destination America does not want a new episode of the show to air on the Memorial Day weekend. So Destination America will instead be airing TNA Slammiversary 2014. TNA reportedly knew ahead of time that viewership for May 22nd might be lighter than usual. So they taped the show with very little storyline advancement. The episode will air unannouncedly on May 22nd, however. Report: Chris Jericho originally wanted to face Hideo Itami on the upcoming tour of Japan. Partial source: the Wrestling Observer newsletter. As previously reported, Chris Jericho will have a match with Finn Balor at WWE Live event in Tokyo, Japan on July 4th. He originally wanted to work with Hideo Itami because he wanted a match that would be special for Japanese fans. And finally, another update on Bob Backlund reportedly cutting a heel promo at Verne Gagne funeral. As previously reported, Bob Backlund had to deny rumors that he cut a heel promo during Verne Gagne's funeral. Now former AWA alumni Mick Cox, who was in attendance, posted a new thread on Facebook. Cox, who was an announcer for the defunct promotion, responded to Bob Backlund's version of the event in a Facebook post. Cox said that Backlund made a comment during Greg Gaunt's eulogy, saying he was representing WWE, which was the same story that Backlund told. Other reports have suggested that Backlund screamed during Greg's speech, asking if he was cutting a promo. Here's what Cox said, and I quote: "If you wasn't there, it is pretty absurd to say it didn't go down as reported. Even if you a fan of Backlund, and there is nothing wrong with that, I would say one more time, Greg Gaunt was wrapping up his eulogy for Verne when Backlund stood up, made some shouting referencing to representing WWE, and then told Greg, and I quote, 'Don't talk back to me.' He smiled and sat back down. Greg's response was, 'Who was that?' Someone said Bob Backlund, and Greg responded, 'Who let him in here?' Backlund hadn't just spoken the word. He was shouting as if he was cutting a promo from his Mr. Backlund days." Well, guys, that's it. Like, comment, subscribe. See you guys on the next one. Peace.